With Michael's features, you're sprinting for the entire time you're on it.
I kept cutting and more footage kept coming in, so you have to constantly be reworking it and reworking it.
For the tilted building sequence, he told us that he thought of it while he was doing stomach crunches, which is funny because it gives us stomach aches.
We were digging that sound, so we went with it.
Often what you hear is not what you'd expect it actually is.
What's wrong?
You know you've made it in this business when Michael Bay is sitting with you and you're rushing to get something done because Steven Spielberg is 2 minutes away and he's coming in any second to look at your cut.
I think that's good. Joel had been on the second movie. Roger had been on the first 2 movies. And Billy, this was his first time. We just hit it hard very quickly, going into complicated scenes and trying to build sections so that we can start feeding the beast, which is the effects pipeline.
Whatever scenes come in, we just take them and start working on it. And we show them to Michael, and then he looks at them, gives us notes, and he may send it to another editor, or he may keep the same editor on it for a while. But the reason why Michael likes more editors is to get a fresh eye on the sequences. Like, he'll give the same sequence to 2 editors, and he'll take, oh, that part's pretty good in that sequence, that part's pretty good in that sequence, let's mix them up, let's look at it again.
He had me and Joel cut the same scene at the same time, and it took about 4 or 5 days to cut it because there was so much footage.
Instead of one brain working on it, you've got, 3 brains. He uses our editorial perspective the best way he can. So, did you guys do anything different here with the...
In editorial, you immerse yourself to the point sometimes where you can fool yourself that something is working because you know the geography of where everything is and who is who and what robots are what robots, but it's really important to step outside of that and try to get fresh eyes on it.
The best thing a director can give you as an editor is the ability to make a wrong choice, because you don't want to get so tied up in knots about getting it perfect that you don't think outside the box. I mean, I've done other visual effects movies before, but never as big as this, and never with as many empty plates. You cut these scenes together, and Michael shoots just hours of plates for each scene, and sometimes you literally don't know whether it's a camera reset or it's supposed to be a shot.
I worked together with Digital Domain, cutting sequences together. And one example is the scene in Dylan's mansion where Dylan reveals that he works for the Decepticons. There's a scene in there where one of the Decepticons grabs Carly and pulls her into the car, but he's a robot and he turns into a car. All that scene is just, when it's shot, it's just her on a rope being grabbed and pulled up, and and then there's a shot of a blank street, the mansion in the background, and what I do is I build it all just with the plates. I consult with them, they kind of tell me a little bit about where things that go, and it's just a constant back and forth, just kind of putting it together and making it the most exciting that it can be.
Roll 3D. Rolling.
When people said Transformers 3 in 3D, everyone thought, oh my God, that's the movie I want to see. And then we all said, how the are we going to do that?
The amazing thing about 3D is it actually focuses the audience on what action you want them to actually see.
It does change the cutting pattern a lot.
3D is very bad when you do this. It strobes, it's got a lot of problems there. I'd slow down my style. I did a lot of master shots.
You kind of have to hold shots a little bit longer. There's a lot to look at.
Not only the kinetic imagery that Michael shoots, but it's the kinetic energy of the animation within the frame. As editors, we're cutting lengths of shots, but we've got a whole, company or two of visual effects artists who are editing within the frame. And it's all that editing within the frame that makes pulling off the 3D really challenging. Just because we lock down a shot length doesn't mean the work is done. All we're doing is saying, we want this shot from here to here. ILM, go to it. We like the human performances in the shot. And then once they start working on the robot animation, there is a process where that animation is temp, and then it gets finer and finer until it's locked. It's a lot to figure out.
There's a lot of scenes everybody's going to be talking about. The bat suits is a huge sequence. I mean, that's amazing.
The Birdman dailies are just sick. I mean, it's insane what these guys are doing. I'll never forget, in looking at the dailies, some of the scariest stuff for me is these shots when they jumped both out of helicopters and off the top of some of the tallest buildings in Chicago. And they had these cameras looking off the face of the building where these guys wearing these helmet cams would peer over the edge, and that gave you this perspective shift. It just made your stomach churn, and it was really fun to cut that stuff.
I remember the very first test screening, there was a kid goes, "You got to take that scene out." This was when it was a rough cut. I'm like, "Why?" He says, "You can't do that." I said, "Well, let me just tell you, all but 2 of those shots are real."
Michael does not like to lean on CG any more than he has to. Even though we're talking about a Transformers movie with 60-foot tall robots running around, the magic of these movies is that it's all meant to be photoreal. And so anytime we can avoid creating something in the computer, Mike is going to want to do that. Those guys are real, man. And when they're flying around inside Chicago, especially the helmet cam stuff, really gives you the sense of being up there, and seeing it in 3D is pretty mind-blowing. It looks sick. I've skydived before, but this is nothing. I mean, what I've done is stupid.
You know, one thing that we joke about, Roger and Billy and I, is when you work on a movie, usually there's about 4 money sequences, and this movie's got 12. I'm not kidding you, it's huge.
All right, let's go.
In a lot of ways, as effects artists, you couldn't ask for more than Michael Bay.
While I respect him and he is brilliant, it's exhausting. He's always thinking a few steps ahead, because you'll be doing animation and we're all thinking animation, and he'll be like, well, we're gonna get light kicks over here and I can do a sound cue over for that, and then he's kind of thought the shot through further than you have, because you're just like, you know, blinders on, animation.
He has a fantastic eye.
He sees stuff so quickly. I think his pacing is different to most people.
You pull up a shot and he looks at it and he'll be like, "That's soft."
And you're like, how does he do that? He's my pain in the ass, but he's a effing genius.
Review sessions with Michael are very interesting because you never quite know what you're going to get.
The transmissions would go every day, and it's laborious. It's just shot by shot, pixel by pixel, light, you know.
He's looking at the shot, and he's in there maybe biting on his shirt, and you're like, what's he thinking? And he's not saying anything. Then, okay, that's as close as you're going to get to, it looks great, guys. So, boom, next shot, you bring it up. Next shot comes up, he's looking at it, and one word you don't want to hear is the G word. Guys, like, oh, God, here we go. And if it's one guys, you're okay.
Terrible looking, guys. Guys, I don't like all the blue.
We can deal with that, you know. Then it's guys, like, and your head just keeps going down with every guys. It's just like, you get the 21 guys salute, and you're back to blocking.
Guys. Is that what I do?
He's really great about interacting with the artists, and they love it as well.
What are those little things coming by, like fireflies?
Little bugs.
I love them. Give that guy, that woman, $25. This is beautiful. Who is that? Wayne, I'll pay you back. Just give the money, all right?
Simon Twain.
All right.
Simon Twain.
All right, $25.
Simon. All right.
Just send me a bill when you're done.
That's good. It goes too long here, but
Shit's a very descriptive word.
so
They understand all different iterations of it.
that's trying to make it pop.
Bullshit, you know, it's just some more shit. Shit. Just adds a little more shit to it. I don't give a shit. I have a very good rapport with the ILM guys, you know? So we've known each other for so long. We're firing on all cylinders right now. This is a finely honed team.
He's great with really pushing the realism of the characters.
We don't like fake CG.
I love how you did the gun. The gun has really come a long way. It looks amazingly real. Do we want to do some skidding stuff? Let's talk about that.
Smoke.
I know, but the wheels, would you try to, you gotta, let's talk animation of the wheels.
They'll definitely tell you if something's not working right to your face. No BS about it.
Well, Bumblebee looks up. Ferrari still looks so up. Sideswipe is a little lame.
Something we've learned from the first two is not to challenge him.
Where are the bricks? Come on, you're telling me that's where they all land?
I don't think we turned any off.
Am I missing something?
He remembers it all, and it's kind of insane.
I know on the plate we can see him sooner than that. His hair, didn't you have like a different look of his hair? Don't we have to make it go all the way up?
Not yet, not in this shot.
Ah, yeah, gotcha. Okay, all right. Just testing you. You passed. Yeah. I give them a lot of creative freedom. Show me. DD did exactly that.
He actually helps us improve our work, and I appreciate that.
I'm really pleased with the work we've done on this movie. It's taken a lot out of me, but at the end of the day, I'm very proud to be associated with those images and the work that everyone here has done. The moon in particular.
In the moon sequence, we got pretty accurate data. Japan sent up a probe and basically laser scanned the moon.
We're doing a lot of shots on the moon, so we're trying to figure out what the look of the actual moon surface is supposed to be, which is kind of what this is. How to take it from kind of more of a gray shaded, low-res model of the moon surface to try and apply like a look that actually works.
We start out with 6 gravity, moon silt, and robots and such.
As these ships pull themselves out of the moon's crust and all the silt that's around them and break things are free, we get to have that elegant ballet of motion that we're not used to down on Earth.
Protoforms, Michael liked them when they ran at a certain rate. We had a bunch of different speeds, and Michael also wanted this quad run. So we took our biped, and fortunately he had very long gorilla arms and very long fingers. The speed of the run is tricky. You know how the Moonmen, they all move kind of slow so they don't like launch themselves for like a football field's length. But they looked better when they weren't running so slowly. We like had to work that out so that the speed was good looking, but not so fake.
So the whole Cybertron being pulled through space to the Earth, I think originally we were forming a lattice that kind of formed the planet of Cybertron. So we started working in that direction. Early on, there's this beam that's kind of feeding the pillars with energy, and the pillars themselves here are kind of projecting some energy, and then we're transforming everything we're actually like materializing the planet out of it. But then the further we got into this, then Michael Bay didn't seem to really like the idea of materializing the planet. And that's kind of when we got the change of direction from, I think, when he had a meeting with Spielberg and we got these awesome drawings.
Steven Spielberg came over to Michael and did a drawing on a piece of paper. It's very scribbly, but Morton kept it.
So I think the idea was, instead of materializing the planet, there was some kind of portal in space that the planet was being pulled through. So he really wanted to show the ring, the interface where the planet is kind of either materializing or being pulled through. So you can clearly feel that it's being transported from a different dimension or a different place. This is an early concept frame of kind of showing a little bit more of a orange kind of glowy portal. This is the first shot where the planet is actually starting to pull through. So the effects team started coming up with all these like solar flare looking things. We still had some energy feeding, a beam feeding the energy of the portal. So there's kind of energy traveling across. It's kind of neat.
We've done little phones and little kitchen appliances, and that stuff was great, but we've been wanting to get our hands on big giant robots ever since this thing started. Getting a chance to work on big giant robots walking around just blasting people with extreme prejudice was very therapeutic.
And it's amazing. It's a whole different mindset, different animation style. You don't really appreciate it till you have to go ahead and do them, right? How much work Island puts into them. The good thing about them is they're just more impressive, right? I mean, as soon as you put them up there and they're towering over everyone and shadowing people, and you're like, they're awesome. I mean, that's why everyone wants to do Transformers.
The bad boy on this one was Driller. And in many ways, Driller was even harder than Devastator.
We had just finished Transformers 2. We'd built Devastator. Most complicated thing we'd ever done.
We were pretty sure Michael had broken us with that one.
And when we started this movie, we went down to the art department. We're looking through the robots, okay, Optimus is getting a few upgrades, great, Bumblebee's getting a few. And we get to this piece of art, and it's like spanning, 3 boards.
It's this massive, massive, massive complex robot. A big worm, octopus, snake, Cuisinart.
3 football fields long.
Turning and rotating. And one of the hardest things for an animator to do is animate tentacles. This thing is just a huge tentacle with tentacles coming off of it. And the tentacles don't just slither and move, but they're also spinning.
He's got just thousands and thousands and thousands of parts.
On the scale of probably 8 Optimus Primes. Optimus Prime had about 17,000 pieces.
He's so complicated that it just takes a massive amount of patience and computer power to get the scenes with him done.
It took us several months to actually get something functioning where animators had control over how to pose it, how to put the whole package together.
We've managed to make kind of different resolutions of him. The high is extremely slow to work with. It crashed my machine earlier today.
We had to have all of their machines upgraded to the latest, greatest state-of-the-art 64 gigs of memory. I think average home computers have between 2 and 4 gigs.
The most computing power they've ever had to do for any shots ever at Lucasfilm.
So already we're barely able to animate and render this character because he's such a difficult asset. And then we get to the sequence where, okay, now he needs to be crushing a building.
Getting Driller to interact with it at every stage is just an enormous feat.
The skyscraper in this movie is as much a character as anything.
We started modeling the building while we were still shooting.
It's a big, involved, complex model that has to perform in a lot of ways. It breaks in the middle. Pieces of it break out. Driller tears through it.
When you look at the events happening in a shot like this, a lot of it was the individual artist going in and saying, okay, these floors are getting squeezed here in the middle, so I'm gonna crush those up, and then that would then, for the next artist, drive their glass simulation.
The physical dynamics involved with something like that are incredibly complex, both from the modeling standpoint, and then we get into rigid simulations with the computers running simulations based on force and gravity to make all that glass pour out and all that concrete pour out.
And the sides bowing out and flexing. And then the last step is
all the debris and the
paper, concrete, glass.
Construction. That was just an enormous undertaking on itself.
Well, this gives you a few examples, too, of the different layers that go into here.
You see bits of rebar and bits of concrete. Here's a couch that falls. And we have libraries of things like couches and rebar and concrete.
Window blinds.
And the people working on these shots can pull from those libraries.
It really is a layer cake of items to put together.
If you were to sit down and read the script and go, how are you gonna do that? You know, and then seeing the way it is in the film, it's just like, man, we did it. No, I can't believe it, but there it is, and it looks pretty cool.
It's a struggle for us to find the characters in these cold bits of metal. With the case of Sentinel Prime, Michael had always latched on to Sean Connery. He had a beard. We modeled him with sort of one eyebrow lifted up like this.
He was sort of meant to seem regal. He's even got like a little tassel thing kind of hanging down and the big shoulder epaulets.
He's kind of this ultimate badass warrior who's also sort of an older general type.
Well, Leonard Nimoy, he married Susan Bay, who's a cousin of mine. I finally got the kahunas up to email him. I said, Leonard, I'm just wondering if you would ever be interested to be a voice character in Transformers. And I've got this great role. It's a pivotal role in this movie. Would you be interested? And he's like, I'd love to. I'm glad to be back. I was on the very first movie. And it was great. With the voice sessions, what we do is we kind of get a bunch of it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? And then we put it in, and then we'll come back and we'll touch up certain lines. Okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it kind of works pretty.
Well, let's just attack some stuff and see what it sounds like.
Okay. He sort of, gave us this great old man performance. It was a really gravelly voice, and he really talked. Yeah, it was great.
We couldn't have been happier when we started hearing some of the voiceovers coming in for us to be able to animate to.
Always the bravest of us, Optimus. But you could never make the hard decisions. Our planet will survive.
It was really a lot of fun to animate to. Our animators had a great time.
We watched the ADR session of Leonard Nimoy to see how he uses his mouth when he speaks. So we have those up on our monitor while we're animating Sentinel Prime character.
I am no longer your teacher, Optimus. You are mine.
Did they tell you how they broke the Pro Tools? Apparently, it only goes to 32,000 fades, and we had one reel with 32,000 fades, and it locked up.
The software that we work in is called Pro Tools. And for the first time ever, I found that we couldn't create any more fade files.
They had to call the engineers that invented it, and they realized they broke it. They never went to 32,000 fades.
Never imagined.
Never imagined.
Never imagined.
Why would you ever need to go beyond
32,000 fades in one reel?
On reel 7 of this movie, which happens to be the reel with the tilted building, the skyscraper coming down, all of that action, we maxed out the technology on that reel.
We couldn't add one more track. And this is a system that is so powerful, yet we maxed it out.
It took Transformers 3 to tell us that there was a maximum limit.
That's an absolute first.
We've all done big movies and never heard of that before.
The most important thing for us to do is, with our sounds, tell the story. We wanted to elevate the picture and create this alchemy between what you see and what you hear that brings the experience to another level.
That's a great sound.
One of the beautiful things about sound work is that it really helps to ground the pictures, especially in a big visual effects film.
Michael gave us a ton of creative freedom. He wanted us to keep things very specific, not have a lot of flab on the track, but that said, he let us go. As long as it was cool and worthy of the picture, it could go in.
Now, the enchilada.
So that mothership coming down is an elephant vocal as he's diving down. If anybody out there wants to make a mothership crashing sound.
Can't find a better sound team. What I love about them is they create so many sounds. They try to do things so different.
In the very beginning of the process, we started recording sounds, collecting sounds. A lot of sounds we didn't even know what they would be used for, but they were just good sounds.
If you're just keep an open mind to sort of what's out there in the world, you can make some happy sort of discoveries.
For all of these movies, I've had a lot of fun recording sounds in my kitchen. For the first movie, the sound of frenzy was the sound of my kitchen cabinet squeaking and chopped up, to sound like a little vocal. In the second movie, some of the sounds of jet fire were my broiler door on my stove creaking for his old rusty joints and parts. And on the third movie, I got to use my fridge. My fridge has a great, when you kind of let it just go, it's got a great groaning sound. And mic'd really closely and then slowed down a little bit and enhanced a little bit. That became the big sound for the building leaning down as it's crashing.
Yeah.
And that's a baboon. When we recorded this baboon, the baboon trainer told us, well, when you're recording, take your keys out of your pocket and just put it on the ground and pretend like you don't see what I'm about to do. And so I'm there under my headphones with my microphone, I've put my keys on the ground, and the trainer sneaks up behind me and steals the keys and runs off. So now the baboon is looking at me and looking at the trainer who's run off with my keys, and he starts flipping out. He's upset by the injustice of my keys getting stolen. So that's when he starts vocalizing and really emotional kind of, he's trying to let me know that my keys had just gotten stolen. So that sound of him trying to warn me, that emotional vocal, became the sound for the driller as he's tearing through Chicago and destroying the city.
The driller is really one of my favorites in all the series. There was a big party here, and the caterers dumped this block of ice on the ground outside of our cutting rooms. And we went outside, saw it, it was kind of melting, and we started sliding it around on the pavement.
And it was making this guttural kind of sound that almost sounded animalistic. And something we totally weren't planning, but it just happened to be an awesome sound that became the main element for the driller's body sliding.
I like the thing that's on 9 and 10. It's a good sound.
Every scene is an opportunity to experiment and learn and try out something new.
That's cool.
That's good shit.
By the third movie now, we don't want to just go literal with it. And it's a lot more fun, and I think the product is a lot better to just try to take things that you'd never expect and plug it into something. Like for a lot of the alien guns, we used sounds that have nothing to do with guns. Like a water drop, and then you take the boom and just repeat it, boom, 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 boom.
We always say, and we've been told that this is his happy place.
These guys are the best.
Been in this room for 3 months. And it's been a bit crazy.
This is our first fight?
About 80. Yeah, crunchy.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Certainly the most ambitious sound job we've ever done. I hope people get out there and just dig it, because we have.
We're in Russia. This is the biggest premiere in the history of the world.
Well, we have the green carpet, not the red carpet, which is fun.
This has been a whirlwind, it's been a roller coaster. I'm so thrilled to be here with everybody after all our hard work.
Fans are definitely going to see stuff they have not seen before.
I thought the premieres we did for the last two were pretty spectacular. I kind of want to do a fourth one just to see what the premiere is going to be like. Where do we go, to the moon?
I can't wait for the Linkin Park concert this night in Red Square.
You couldn't imagine building a better backdrop for a live performance.
Red Square, Russia, Linkin Park, crazy.
I am very proud of Transformers, including all the things that I've ever said bad about Transformers, because I think that those things needed to be said so that we could be the Transformers 3 that we became, honestly. And it is the best movie we've made.
I had a blast working on this movie, and I feel very grateful to Mike and to everybody that believed in me and took a chance on me. You know, and Michael, I've never been around anyone that works as hard as him. He's totally dedicated to these movies. He spent 6 years of his life working on them every single day. You know, he works really hard, and the only way I felt like I could thank him for giving me this opportunity was by working really hard for him, which I hope I did.
This crew and this cast, we've become pretty tight. I mean, this is now the third movie that I've worked with Tyrese and Shia. But, you know, I think especially you see it in Shia. You know, when we shot the first one, he was just a kid. And he's grown up.
Watching Shia kind of grow up on these movies, you know, I've had to be kind of a father and a big brother to him.
You know, you watch him become a man. You know, I know that sounds kind of trite, but that's the truth. He was a teenager, and now he's a man.
He's a great actor, and, you know, I think the world of the kid. I've worked with a great crew. We were really a well-oiled machine. It was kind of like a big, gigantic Transformer family, and they've worked their hearts out on this one, and it really shows.
One of the great and lucky things about working on films like this is that you get to travel and you get to see things that most folks don't get to see.
With Michael, doors open. Pyramids and space shuttles and Lincoln memorials.
There's so many things that we get access to as a film crew that are really, really special.
For instance, I'd never been to Chicago. I think Chicago is one of my favorite cities in the world now. And you know, you get a chance to see places and live in places that you haven't been. I don't know if I ever would have got those opportunities had I not been in this movie. I think at the end of the day, I'm just very grateful for Michael giving me the opportunity early on and for letting me continue my character in these movies. And I've had a blast. I really have.
It's hard to soundbite my 6 years with Michael, and it's very difficult, man. It's hard to encapsulate all these memories. I have 6 years of memories. It's hard to pick one.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, this has been 6.5 or 7 years. It feels like we never stopped. It's like we've all been this crazy family for 7 years.
It's kind of been a magical kind of ride working with 4,000 artists, and remembering the very first day when I had the very first test screening in Arizona with 400 people, I'm like saying to myself, this is a dumb robot movie.
I'm sure Paramount and Hasbro and all of us involved will want to do another one. My guess is we're going to do a lot of reimagining when we get there.
You know there are going to have to be more of these movies. It's one of those just uber successful franchises, and it's grown in its potential instead of gotten weaker. That's a sign that people want to see more of it, and I think there can be more of them. It's very tempting to go back, you know, when I see Bumblebee's face, and it's just to think I'm handing it off to somebody else, you know. But I'm really in need of doing another movie right now. I'm just, I need something creatively to do something different. So maybe I just need to recharge my batteries. You asked me the question again.